Hello and welcome back to round three of the London Chess League. For this round, I didn't really have any prep, so I just went into it going to play my normal stuff. And after my opponent played his first move e4, I played the Sicilian with c5, and this is just what I'm familiar with. He plays knight f3. I played knight c6. This is actually slightly different from what I've been playing before because I have been learning some new openings, which we'll get to see in the last round. But here he doesn't go for the open Sicilian; he just plays d3. Now this is quite a passive move, but it does sort of signal he's going to the close Sicilian with g3 and bishop g2. And there's nothing wrong with this for white, it's just not a particularly ambitious line. He said after the game he just doesn't really like the open Sicilians, which is fair enough. So that's what happened. We both fianchetto. Fianchettoing for black I think is the best try against the closed for white because you just get this really nice diagonal. And then I go for e6. This is another common idea, just putting a knight here where it can't really be attacked. It's helping support the center and any breaks that you want to go for. He castles, I play knight e7, c3, just sort of blunting my bishop. Castles, these moves just make sense. Not much to say, developing the knight, and then d5. Now, interestingly, in hindsight, I think d5 is actually a mistake. Now, the computer says they're roughly equal, but if I bring up the opening tree. There we go. You can see that basically the two main ideas here are d5 and d6. However, d6 does score a lot better than d5. And afterwards, my opponent actually told me about this idea in the game. I didn't really even think about going for this. This wasn't even on my radar. But the idea being with d6 is that, say, white plays rook e1, then you play e5, and you just sort of block down the center. Yes, you do have this weakness here, but you're covered by the knight, and eventually you're going to break out with f5. And this plan seems quite straightforward and ready to go. Now, the plan with d5, which is what I went for, is by no means a bad move. I mean, literally, the computer says 0-0. I've already equalized out the opening. But I don't think it's as clear as it is in the other line. Because after we see with rook e1, then my plan now is going to become, I'll hide the opening book so it doesn't get too distracting. My plan is just going to be pushing these pawns and then hopefully breaking through and using this diagonal to open up, which I think it's also clearly a good plan, but in hindsight, maybe this f5 move might have been better. Because as we're going to see, I play a bunch of pretty natural moves, what I think they are, and I just get into a position which didn't feel right. So I play rook b8, the idea just to support b5. In post-game analysis, we both sort of agreed that rook b8 is kind of pointless and I could just be playing b5 immediately if I wanted to be playing b5. But to me, I didn't see there's no rush. You can't prevent me from playing b5, and I want to just get my rook off the diagonal, so I don't see anything wrong with this. He tries to prevent b5, but of course I can still play anyway. I'm going to play a6 just to really support b5. I could have played b5 immediately with the idea that if he takes and takes, this pawn I think is weaker than this pawn. But again, I didn't see a reason why to imbalance the situation. And if I do lose this b pawn in this line, then I don't have this b pawn to like push down and try break out the position. So yeah, I thought it was better to at least keep the possibility of having a pawn on the b file. He brings his knight across, and I attack it with c4. Now this is probably the first slight inaccuracy of the game from me, unfortunately. Um, yeah, he can just take here. It's sort of the punish. But even if you take back, I mean, it's not the end of the world. The computer's saying like +1, so it really isn't that bad. Just white gets some pressure if you just go down this sort of model line from the computer. But it's not the end of the world, to be honest with you. So yeah, I would have been fine if this happened. Just I need to be slightly careful of it, I guess. Now there is actually a trap here as well. Which works quite nicely for black, in the fact that the knight can easily get trapped here. So if you take and take, which is what he did, you have to be careful not to play knight c4 because the c5 because this actually traps the knight. It's quite surprising that the knight's in the middle of the board, but it has no squares to actually go to, because the bishop actually covers on a6. But yeah, unfortunately for me, my opponent didn't fall for it. I was sort of hopefully, wishfully hoping that he was going to, but it didn't happen. So I just continued developing. Queen c7, queen e2, b5 is going for my plan. Takes. Bishop e3 just developing. E5. Now this is quite a committal move in this situation, and I did have a long think about this, but it's not really clear how I progress my position if I don't play e5. and I really want to get rid of his outpost on d4 because I believe the knight on d4 is actually quite annoying for me, and it's sort of controlling my pushing ability and blocking off my diagonal. Yes, I'm going to be blocking off my diagonal with e5, but at least my bishop can hopefully get back into the game elsewhere. So e5 made sense. Takes, knight takes. I did think about queen takes in the game, but I think knight takes is just a bit cleaner. So the knight wasn't particularly doing much here. Anyway, yes, I could help, sort of maybe push f5 in a in the future, but with both of the heavies on this file, I don't think I really want to be opening the center. So I take. He brings his rook to the file. Bishop b7. Bishop c5, just sort of coming in. I have to control this square so he doesn't have this pin. Queen e3. And at this point, the computer still says 0-0, but I was slightly, I don't know, annoyed, not annoyed with myself is the wrong word, but slightly just, it just felt wrong. And it, yeah, I just really struggled in this position because there's actually tactics that are going against me now, and I need to be careful. And maybe I just overestimated how good my position was, but I really thought that I had no mistakes in the opening, and therefore my position should be fine. So it just really baffled me that I could be in some under some sort of pressure. And I think that just stemmed from the fact that I overestimated how good the opening was for me. And really, it's actually White that's going to be getting some of the pressure now. Because after taking, which I think is pretty much forced, and he takes back, this is, I don't know, it just felt awkward to play because this is a threat. Maybe this is a threat pushing me off the file. The computer wants rook d8, which is what I looked at, but this doesn't work obviously because you can just take with check. But then rook d5 comes, and this is, it just feels awkward. And now, what I didn't see is a very long computer line, which now makes this okay, which I don't hate myself for not seeing, because after takes, it looks like I'm losing a pawn because the knight has to move, and then this is undefended. But I can bring my knight back this way, and if you take in the center, um, oh, sorry, that's not what. Oh, yeah, you can push the queen away, sorry, to distract the queen from defending the pawn first, because the pawn was defended. And then after this situation, after you can take here, this doesn't actually work, so it'd be checkmate. And then if you try to take with, you can't take with the queen. And just missing this idea of checkmate along the file is, yeah, it is what it is. But even then, it just feels like such an awkward position to play because this is coming. Perhaps I guess I've got this next. Yeah, this is what the computer's suggesting. So, yeah, this seems rough to find from this position back here, which is when I had to sort of be looking. Um, so instead I played bishop f8. Now, we both agreed in the game, and I spent a long time on this, about half an hour. We both agreed afterwards that this is probably the best move by black, which is ironic because this is actually blunder, but we both sort of believe the position. Now, the way to punish this, sadly, is what I missed, is just simply taking, and then whatever takes back, I don't think taking with the king's a good idea because then this comes with check as well. And then also the move that he was going to play, queen c5. And this just now becomes really awkward for black. Like, how do you defend these things? And I think black is actually lost. So I'm quite fortunate that my opponent missed this, and it just shows how the position seemingly it seemed good, but just that's not the case anymore. Luckily for me, he just attacked my queen, but I can move it out of the way. He said after the game that he thought this was the only move that I had, which should have been bad for black, but he missed that I could play just queen e7 getting out of the way. This also now protects the c5 square for infiltration, so this is quite good for me now. I'm not losing anymore. I'm back to even. Bishop a3. I don't want the bishop coming in, so I'm just planning to trade it. He takes. I take. But now he gets this rook d5 in, and I don't have my rook on the file to contest it. And again, it's just awkward for me. It's no else really to say this, and this middle game really isn't going as well as I hoped for. I have to play b4 to protect the pawn. It was under attack. He can bring his bishop back. I can bring my queen across to protect the pawn. Now, I thought in my head for some reason that there was a trap against him taking this pawn, but I was completely mistaken. And the trap that I was looking at was something like this. And my point was that he was going to be pinned to the queen. Sorry, no, not taking with the, because otherwise the rook hands, but taking with the rook like this, and then the queen would be pinned. But this just isn't true because the queen's defended. So yeah, this tactic just didn't work with me at all. And really, probably queen c7 was a bit stronger than queen b7, but I think I am just losing a pawn anyway. So he takes, and I then take again as well. And now we're just in an end game where he's up in a pawn, which just sucks, but it is what it is. Now I do have to look for some counterplay, and there is some counterplay here for black. And winning positions like this are a lot harder than they look because queens are still on the board, anything can happen. And as we can see, as we're about to see, in the next move, it actually turns out quite well for me because after rook d8, it's actually somewhat hard to think of a move for white, which you've got to. I'm not saying it's impossible, but stuff like Queen B1 is actually quite scary, and then coming back to D3, and it's going to be quite hard to hold. So, for example, White does a nothing move, then I have Queen B1 check. Maybe this comes, and this. Oh, not taking that, and this, and then if you take, then you're under pressure. Computer says Queen B6 is okay for White, but I feel like that'd be hard to see. And then as well, I'm threatening to just push this pawn. So if we have take take here, I think white has actually just lost here because there's. Oh, sorry, I keep misclicking. This pawn isn't stoppable. So yeah, I felt like there was some good practical chances for black, and luckily for me, my opponent actually agreed with me. So he went for a rook trade, which I think at this point is just a draw offer because I can just take and take, and really there's not much in this position anymore. We did play on for a few more moves. F4 seemed a bit weakening, but there's not really much white can do or black can do to expose it. And then I did sort of the same thing, but he went in for a check. And at this point, this is just a draw because nowhere I go is going to be. I have to go to G7. I can't really go here because this would be check. Computer says it's fine, but why even bother with that? And if you go to G7, this is just going to be a perpetual because you can't go to H7 because that would be checkmate. Maybe my opponent should have tried for that, but I did see that one. So back in this position before the rook trade, again, me and my opponent talked about it after the game, and Queen F4 I think was the best try, and it's now a bit hard for white to defend, for black to defend, sorry, as you got to hold on to a lot of the pieces. Your king's under attack, you're already down a pawn, and I think this would have been the best practical try. But it feels a bit awkward leaving your king exposed, even though really because of this nice pawn in the center, it is well defended. But yeah, I guess, relieved to get a draw out of this, and a draw with black is obviously good, and obviously good against a higher rated opponent. And this whole game, I think the issues stem from me overestimating my opening, as well as if we go all the way back here, I even think d5 was the wrong choice here, and I think d6 would have been much stronger, just so that I can go for this e5 and f5 plan, which would have been quite nice to play for. Whereas the b5 plan, it just seems slow. Perhaps maybe didn't go about it the right way, but yeah, it just didn't seem right to me. But yeah, anyway, thanks for watching. And now, actually, before I go, my next round, was paired against Oliver. And if you've watched my previous video, Oliver is the person that I first originally played that Dutch Gambit into. So unfortunately for me, he's actually aware of my semantics and will probably be prepared. So I had to come up with a new idea against the Dutch, which you're going to see next time. So yeah, stick around for that. Cheers. Thanks for watching.